Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Jeremy Wheeler, and it's time for WAVY Science Lab. And we're going to be talking about something very simple today, clean up your act. We're going to talk about soap and cleaning products and how to disinfect and things like that. I forgot what made me think about it the other day, but I was just like, you know what, that's a good idea. I want to learn a little about that. I want to teach a little about that. So that's what we're talking about today. So let's have a look at it and get right into it, actually. And so clean up your act. Hey, you clean up your act, huh? Buongiorno, Italian. The science behind getting clean. So, again, we're going to get a little into chemistry today. And, of course, you know, the first part of chemistry is water, because that's what a lot of people use to clean. Oldest cleaning product in the world that I am aware of. Fish were the first to get clean. That's technically correct, I think. All right, so... So water, that's what we use to clean. But I mean, then of course, through time, they've developed many a different product and to add things to water. So water has a molecule, though, a polar bond, breaks apart other molecules the way that it's set up. And so, you know, we got sodium chloride, table salt. Very common. I think even kind of younger kids are familiar with that for chemistry, and the H2O water. So when you add the two together, the water molecule will split up the sodium, Na, and the chlorine. And so then you've got, you know, it's got a charge to it when it gets split up like that. One's positive, one's negative. So in water, it's dissolved. It's not a chemical reaction because it's still the same things in there. The sodium's in there, the chlorine's in there. They don't change in this case. So it's dissolved. We're familiar with dissolving things, right, in water. So there's, you know, the water molecules. And the way it's shaped, right, it's got that 120-degree bond angle. And that's what makes it polarizing and strong. So you've got a negative on the one side there and then the positive on the other. And so it can latch on to positive and negative things and tear them apart a little bit and connect to them. So it's called hydration. So soap, it aids in this process. Water does a good job at cleaning things, but soap actually helps out a little bit. So the soap molecule split into two parts. One end is water-loving, called hydrophilic, and the other one is water-fearing, hydrophobic. So one end is water-loving, one end is oil-loving because of the polarization there. And again, this is a soap molecule, not a water molecule now. And so it works by splitting things up. It pulls the dirt or oil, some of it, apart. It'll literally pull it apart the way that it's, you know, because of the one end water loving, one end kind of oil loving. And so these two inputs, there are two inputs and three outputs basically when you're making soap. The input number one, animal or plant fat. Ew. I'm going to say that a couple times today. Input number two is a strong alkali. And so an alkali, what is that? You may have heard it, maybe not, but it's a basic a soluble substance which produces hydrogen hydroxide ions. Okay, so the outputs then are soap, water, and glycerin. And so, that's the output. That's what we use then. So the input, you know, the plant or animal fat. Olive oil is an input. Can be palm oil, avocado oil. There's a bunch of different things that they use, all kinds of different things, in fact, that are natural. And so they put it in there. And then the alkali is called sodium hydroxide if you're making bar soap, and then potassium hydroxide if you're making liquid soap. So a bunch of chemistry here, lots of fancy names getting swung around here, kind of a little too much for you, hopefully not. But I know that, you know, that's a little above the younger generation there. So but that's what it is. And so, you know, this is the science of it. And so you're combining the two, it pulls the fatty acids off the glycerin molecule, and it divides the sodium or potassium ion from the hydroxide. And that's kind of a lot there. I wish I had a visualization, but I couldn't find one that would be that would work with my needs. So anyway, but basically, you know, it pulls one thing apart and latches onto something else and creates something new. And so the fatty acids now bond with sodium and potassium, and that forms the soap. Right, the fatty acids come off the glycerin and go onto the sodium or potassium. So now you've got the OH, the ions combine to form water, and that's one of your outputs. And then the glycerin remains by itself, and that helps to lock the moisture into the soap. It's still there, They leave it in the soap, I believe. But no, again, all this has to be carefully measured. You might, be tempted to do some of the things we're talking about here on your own. I don't recommend it because it can be dangerous, can be toxic if you do it wrong. Maybe mix a bad substance in there. So here's a person making soap, and they've got the right ingredients there, and yeah, pretty neat, very neat. I bet I would like to see what the end product is of that. But again, these things are measured, and here's another person that they got all the measurements down, and this is a very expensive science. I mean, soap is $1 billion industry, and so all these different soaps for all your different needs. I mean, all this is well thought out, well thought out. All right, so the soap bonds with oil and water, right? It part bonds with the soap, part bonds with the oil, part bonds with the water, and that's what splits them apart. It's called an emulsifier. Helps break the surface tension of water, allows for a deeper clean to happen. So it's a great tool. It's a great tool. So oil, let's back it up a little bit because we're talking about splitting up oil. It's made of hydrocarbons, hydrogen and carbon locked together. And so when you look at the chemistry of it, you can see like these bunch of C's and these bunch of H's all kind of latched onto each other. And so that's hard to break apart. That's why oil, it's good for tools and it's good for cars because, it gets in there. It's hard to break it up. It's a lubricant. So hydrogen and carbon have a strong bond. And so again, it's just, it doesn't mix well with water, just the way it is. If I'm back to my chemistry days, I believe it's not polar, whereas water is. I think that's part of the problem. It's been a little while. I had to do a lot of research. Anyway, soap breaks down the oils, though, the way that it's made. And then germs, too. This works kind of the same way with germs. So bacteria, viruses are coated in lipids and fats, which are kind of oils. And so the soap attaches to them like an oil and separates and pulls them apart. And then, hey, you're washing with soap, and then it's sent packing. So, here's a bar of soap, just, standard bar of soap with peppermint. And so it does the job. It's soap mixed with water, and then you use that to take care of the germs. You wash your hands very well, and then it sends the germs packing. It coats them. It literally coats the germs, and it coats the oil. The soap will kind of wrap around it, and then it washes down and goes down the drain. All right, we're going to have more on this coming up right after the break. Stay with us. All right, we are back, and we are talking about soap. Clean up your act, right? We're trying to clean things up around here. This podcast is just it's a train wreck. Clean up your act. All right, Mr. Wheeler, clean up your act. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at some more information. So we're talking about germs and how they got washed out with the soap. Let's go way back here and talk about the history of soap. Goes back to ancient Babylon, 2800 BCE, before the Common Era, and a long time ago, fats were boiled with ashes. Ew! Ancient Egyptians bathed regularly, and that was after that point. Then soap, the word, I guess, is Roman. I didn't know this. Mount Sapo, rain would mix with animal fat and ash and wash down the mountains. How many animals were on that mountain? What were they doing? So it's interesting. I mean, wow. And then they learned that, that soap would work from that point. So just very interesting and very gross to know that. So going back in time, some more information. Nicolas Leblanc, French chemist, patented the process and made soda ash from common salts. And so that was important. 1850, soap was one of America's fastest growing industries. Didn't know that either. And then this is really important. World War I and World War II, there was a shortage of animal and vegetable fats. So they had to make something else up. So they synthesized things and they made, other materials. And so they made detergents. And that's key because that changed the course of humans, forever. Detergents, we're very familiar with that. We use detergents all the time. We're going to talk more about that. 7th century, soap making established in Italy, Spain, France. Good supply of ingredients like olive oil. Yeah, especially in Italy. I've been there, and they have the olive oil orchards. After the fall of Rome, bathing declined, and they had the Dark Ages. A lot of uncleanliness, lots of disease. the Black Plague, bubonic plague, things like that. Just that led to some of those diseases being so proficient, and just you just had less cleaning overall. And then 12th century, English began making commercial soap. In the colonies, American colonies, about 1600, they started making that. So, and we've already covered that one. So let's go to the next slide, if we will. So soap versus detergent. Soap versus detergent. I need more water. The detergent synthesized using natural or petroleum base. So now, a lot of times they use some oil-based products, petroleum base, to clean, which is ironic because that is what we use to clean oil. Detergents perform better in hard water. They're customizable, so they can do much better for some greases and some oils. So that's key. These detergents are what we use a lot of times for cleaning, greases, oils, things like that, as opposed to soap. However, all soaps are biodegradable. The other ones aren't. They don't break down, so that's a problem. So soaps are safer for the planet overall. And you're going to hear the word soap and detergent in your future probably, but there's some very specific language in what determines what, but that's a whole other podcast, so we're not going to go into that. So let's get to it. More grossness. We've got Grease, not the movie. So this is Grease from recent cooking at the Wheeler household. And so, yes, this is gross as well. That is a bottle of grease. I did that just for this experiment, just for this podcast. There's nothing I wouldn't do for WAVY Science Lab. And so that's I had to spoon that grease in there, by the way. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll stop looking at that. But interesting. So this was a crock pot, and the grease was in there. And so we had some detergent, right? And I literally just used 3 or 4 drops in there. And so it spread out, right? It dissolved that oil. And then I probably could have added more, and it would have, really gone nuts. But that's what it does. It breaks down the oil. And so it did, and did a pretty good job. All right. Now, and this did get cleaned, by the way. I ended up cleaning last night. I just want to show you the good stuff. We get all this gross, but I mean, it was from my wife's pot roast, which was quite good, by the way. We're going to drag her into this podcast now. And the pot roast was excellent. And so in my household, whoever cleans or whoever makes dinner, then the other person cleans up after. That's just kind of how we work. We've kind of evolved into that. So anyway, so I ended up cleaning up, and yes, everything got clean after that point. All right, so other types of cleaning. This is some soap for vehicles. Again, it's catered. They can formulate that to get to the specific types of cleaning for the vehicle. The other one was geared more towards grease and cleaning up stoves and things like that. So my wife, there we go again. Here's her car. I told her to clean it. I told her to wash it. Told her to clean it, and she didn't. So I ended up doing it eventually, and so I did that voluntarily. And so you had these streaks there. Now there's dirt, but there's also a little bit of grease. You get grease from the roads, things like that, kicking up. And so you got to use that soap to get that off. And it had rained recently, so the water did not wash that off. Had to use some soap. So we used the soap, and voila, there you go. Oh, that is just beautiful, beautiful. Magical shine right there. Hard work. Okay, so that was the cleaning of the vehicle. All right, so the next thing, bleach. Bleach, we use that, and it cleans, whitens, disinfects, made from chlorine, sodium hydroxide, and I think there's supposed to be a D in there. I just left it out. I apologize. And water. So chlorine, sodium hydroxide, and water are the ingredients in bleach, or some of the ingredients, if not all of them. Oxidation alters the compound by introducing oxygen. So it puts oxygen in there, breaks down the molecule, and separates from the fabrics. And there's some cleaners out there that have, oxidation or oxy. So that's kind of the same idea. Germs are also broken down. So with this process, used to whiten fabric, paper, wood, hair in some cases. Not myself, but I've seen some interesting things with that. So the history of bleach going back in time, ancient Egypt, around 300 BCE, used soda ash from burnt seaweed. How did they know that? How did they figure this out? I probably could have kept reading a little closer and dug more articles, but I was just impressed that they figured that out. That's so cool. Middle Ages, the Dutch used crofting, which is bleaching through sunlight. They left it out for a long period of time, and the sunlight would bleach things. And I think they treat a little bit, but maybe not even chemically. I think most of it was the sun. And 1774, Swedish chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele discovered chlorine. And I apologize, I don't know the exact way to pronounce that. So modern bleach, there's two types, chlorine and peroxide. Peroxide bleach developed in the 1950s, and it doesn't disinfect. It's safer on colors, longer shelf life. But the chlorine bleach, which is what we use to clean very commonly, cheaper to make. It does disinfect, and the water too. So this is all measured for safety, all of it. And there's a bottle of bleach spray. So we're going to come back in just a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this cleaning of the process. You can see in the background a little hint of what's to come, more grossness, more. We're going to look at the showers in the Wheeler household. All right, so stay with us. We are back, and we are talking about some clean things, and we were talking about because we have things that we need to clean, so we're talking about some gross things too. So we led off with bleach, and we kind of alluded to what's next. So those of you that are left, because some folks might have said, "I'm out of here, I can't stand this gross stuff." So let's talk about it. So mold, yep, that's a type of fungus that grows in filaments. People have allergies to it: black, white, green, red. Like M&Ms. Needs moisture. Can be toxic, especially when concentrated. It can be. So here's a little black mold. Yes, in the Wheeler household. Now, I will say this, a little caveat. There is some mold in there, but there's clear caulk rather, and some of it got underneath that, and it's hard to clean out. So I did get a lot of that, but some of it I couldn't get. But I did get a lot of it. I'm not going to show you the proof. But here's the thing you may not know. And that is that you can get red mold. So that is, I believe, in best of my experience, that's mold right there. You're looking at red mold. And so that's something that folks might not realize, that you can get that. Now I want to say that. It can be toxic. Black mold definitely is. Red mold can be toxic, but I think you have to have more concentrations of it, higher concentrations of it. So, in your household, open up those showers when you're done with it. Let that dry out as best you can. A bathroom fan is key. You want to try and get the moisture out as fast as you can to try and leave that. And you're going to have to clean it when moisture happens. It's a shower. You're going to have to clean it, but you at least try and combat that using this. And we talked about that on the humidity podcast, especially in deep detail about that. Okay, so good luck fighting that mold. It's tough. It's tough to fight. It's tough to overcome. Rubbing alcohol, right? We got the rubbing alcohol here. This is the kind you can't drink. I wouldn't. It's toxic. Two types: ethyl and isopropyl. So denatured alcohol, water, and agents are some of the ingredients in that. So it disrupts cells and internal functions of germs and viruses too. So most of us use that isopropyl 70% to clean. That's the majority of what you're going to see. Why not 100%? Why not 90%? Well, it evaporates too quickly. It's called volatile. You put it on the ground, and it disappears pretty quickly, and it doesn't effectively kill things then, what you need to kill. So that is alcohol. Now another one, ammonia for cleaning. This is a very good tool. Naturally a gas, but they make it into a liquid, ammonium hydroxide. It's dissolved in water. Very complicated process, egg complicated, not very. And so it's very alkaline. It's very basic. There's acidic over here and basic over here, and so it's opposite, right? But it breaks down fats and oils, and it does a good job with that. Glass cleaner, most common, right? Stoves, bathrooms, it can be used to clean those things as well. Especially when you shine up, I used to clean myself quite a bit, shines up chrome very nicely, faucets, things like that. You may think, oh yeah, but it shines it up very well. So there's glass cleaner, and it's typically blue. I think they add that in there, if I'm not mistaken, just so you can see it easier. But it does, it does a good job. And so there's some soap scum, and it's good for fight against that. Some really thick soap scum might not work as well. You're going to have to scrub really hard, but that's one of the main uses for that. All right, so ammonia safety. It's got a very strong odor, ammonia. You'll notice that right away. You spray once, and it's just one small spot, and it can get to you. So use a well-ventilated area. Very important to do that. And, some of these others also you want to use in a ventilated area, but for ammonia, it can really get to you quickly. And it can be toxic to lungs, skin, eyes. Keep away from kids. Make sure all these chemicals you want to keep away from kids, but especially this one. And you never mix, the bleach, all of it. Just, make sure that you put it in a safe spot, that the kids can't get to easily, or, lock the cabinets. So you get those child locks. Never mix with other chemicals, ammonia, especially bleach. That's something that hopefully is very common, but it's something that's very important. You can't mix it with bleach. It makes a poisonous gas, and you can go to the hospital if you do that. So think about that too. You might not even mix it with the bleach. Let's say you got ammonia, you're working on the mirror in your bathroom, and then you're going to go straight into the shower, and you got those fumes those mix. And so that can get to you right away, or, after a time too. So just think about that when you're cleaning. Very important. Hand sanitizer. Huh? How about that? Yeah, hand sanitizer. We're all familiar with that one after the pandemic. Alcohol used in antiseptics since the late 1800s. And then so they learned at one point that you can mix the water, alcohol, and glycerin. It became popular in the 90s with Purell and Germex. I think it was developed for that, but it became popular in the 90s. And then it does good, but still, they tell you that too. It does a good job at doing some things, killing some things, germs, but it's more important that you wash your hands with soap and water and get that off you. So very important to use both. Especially, some folks might use it instead of soap and water out in the, you get dirty hands, things like that. Well, it's not exactly going to clean. It might disinfect some, but just keep that in mind. We did that in Scouts sometimes. Anyway, makeup wipes. That's right. Makeup wipes, and very popular. I use them myself. It's a sheet material made of synthetic fibers, polyester, rayon, things like that. And it's got surfactants, emollients, and fragrances in there. The surfactants break up the oil, the makeup, and the emollients soften the skin, and it does a pretty good job. And we're going to do something that you probably never thought that you would ever see on a podcast, but like the Joker in the Batman, right? Yep, there it is. So yes, I'm wearing some makeup right now, and I have one extra of these that I need to put away. So yes, we do wear makeup for TV, but not a lot. It's very thin. The gentlemen wear quite a bit less. All right, so and lastly, you can make bubbles out of the soap. Hey, it's fun. It does a good job at working, but also you can have some fun with it. And, I made bubbles. It's harder than it looks. I thought it was going to be easy, but it was actually kind of hard. And I tried to even get some recipes. I'm not even going to give you the recipe. You can look them up online, but you can make that. I made that bubble maker there, but I made that myself. All right, so we'll wrap it up with the environmental tip of the day, and that is seek out reusable products. Some products can be clean and reused. Mops, instead of the kind you can buy and buy more and more of. Instead of doing that and throwing that stuff away, just reuse the mop. Water bottles, metal straws, sponges, things like that. All right, everybody, hope you learned something today. I'm meteorologist Jeremy Wheeler. You take care and have a good day.